Good evening and welcome to Chromatic Chimera, the channel where everything is made up and experience points never matter. And especially not tonight because it's a table talkies night. And tonight it's a very special table talkies because I brought on the founders of Chromatic Chimera as we kind of just had our first anniversary. So we're going to talk about Chromatic Chimera, the first year, and things going forward. It's going to be pretty exciting. So thank you so much to Alex and Chris for being here.
Thank you for having us on our own channel.
It's so nice here.
Yeah, that's because you're the one not running tech tonight.
I know, it's so freeing.
So, we're gonna obviously talk about the channel a lot and like how you decided to start the channel, how it came to be, and stuff like that. But first, we're gonna talk a little bit about you individually. So you're both, I know you both, you're both giant nerds, enormous nerds, and I was just wondering, how did we get to this point? When did you start being nerdy, and how?
Alex, you want to go first?
Sure, I can go first.
Cool.
Let's see. It all started back on that fateful day in 1993 when I was born. That sounds like a joke, but that's really where it started. There's like a picture of me, fresh out of the womb, just directly in the world, and my dad's reading a comic book to me. So like,
Oh.
I was a baby. It started there. I've always been a nerd. Just because of that, just growing up with a super nerdy dad, it kind of just happens.
Yeah, I mean, mine isn't too far off from Alex's. I was born or whatever, the part we can skip over. And then when I was like 7, my dad took me to my first D&D game, and I asked him the other day how old I was. There's no way I was 7, but he said 7. And my godfather was the DM, and then my uncle and my dad, and then my cousin and me were the players. And ever since then, I've been kind of in love with it. Then I took like a huge break until I was in high school, and then my uncle decided to run another campaign, and that was a really fun campaign. It was a huge table with a bunch of family friends, like 12 people, 12 players, so it got really out of control really fast. But it was a good experience for like a few years later in college when I started to DM, and ever since then, that's what we've been doing.
What system did you start on? If you started when you were like a wee babe.
Yeah, AD&D. So it was
the OG.
I know nothing about it now, but I just know like Missile Fire goes first, and I was a ranger, so
that's like me with because I started on 2 second, and that's me too. Is where it's like I can't remember how it works. Thaco was weird. Someone else did my math for me when I was a kid.
Yeah,
I just rolled the clacks.
Yep.
So how old were you when you started then in D&D, Alex?
Let's see. I kind of like Chris. I played with my dad, and my uncle Keith. That's kind of where the joke with in Agora's Bells with the NPC named Keith comes from, because it's like Uncle Keith. I was about 9, I think, when I first started playing. And this was back, when Forgotten Realms was kind of new and fresh. When I say kind of, like it had already been around probably for 10 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I kind of started from there. And my character had the dumbest name. My character's name was Alex.
Nice. Mine was
dumb name. That's your name.
Mine was Draco, because I had just seen the first Harry Potter movie. So
nice.
Yep. And that was a Dragonlance campaign too, so everyone kept saying like Draco is in like dragon, and I'm like, no, it's different. So that was a
no,
running
not
joke.
that kind of Draco.
Yeah.
Less cool Draco.
Yeah.
So how did you get from the point of playing D&D as like small wee babes to starting your own actual play streaming channel? Like how did you get here?
So I mean, my story is pretty similar to a lot of people on the internet. Is I started watching Critical Role, and love it or hate it, my love took off from there. And I'm still a big fan, and I just decided I wanted to start running my own games and building the adventures for my own friends. And so I went back home from college for a summer, and I just decided to make a campaign, but I was too poor to afford any of the books or anything like that, and too lazy to look up Forgotten Realms lore, so I just made my own thing. And then, me and Alex we met playing in another game. We met, and then we did another off-stream game online that we really liked. And then from there, we were just like, yeah, we could do that. So that's honestly, that's really it. It's pretty simple. But yeah, definitely motivation from other big streaming channels and things like that definitely inspired me to do it.
My road's a little different than Chris's, where you already had watched a lot of actual play by the time we went into this. I was just kind of getting into the idea of watching actual play and listening to it. Like Chris had been playing and DMing for a while at that point, and had joined the online community, and then joined Chris in the game, and then he invited me to do that offline game as well. And it's also worth noting that's where we met Lucy as well, in that game, and then playing in that offline game. And we were telling really good stories. And one day I was just kind of like, dude, we could fucking do this. And I always liked storytelling, but I've tried writing. I'm not great at that medium. I'm not good at like the traditional mediums of storytelling, and I always found I really excelled in the DM seat. So I was like, this is how I'm gonna get my stories out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I have like 5 or 10 like half-finished novels, and it's the same reason. Like I'm not that like good in that medium, but it does feel good to tell like an interactive story where my players kind of fill that blank in for me, so then I don't have to finish that novel, and they just do it for me. So.
And it's great because I can pull from like all my other interests and stuff. Like I'm pulling from my love of history and my knowledge of history to put elements of that in the game, and pulling my love of other stories and putting those elements into the game and the story. It's really cool how it all kind of comes together in the end there.
So I know both of you are big fans of homebrew over making your own settings, your own stories, rather than following, modules or pre-established adventures. Why is that? Why do you prefer to homebrew?
For me, it started with ease, kind of like I started to talk about. I just started for ease because I didn't want to buy the books. I didn't want to do a ton of research and have my friends say, "Oh, that's not Forgotten Realms research or lore," and so I was just like, "Okay, screw it, I'll make my own." I think the only thing I've really pilfered are like gods, because that's really easy to do research on like Wikipedia, D&D wiki, whatever, and I guess the reason I prefer it is just because I feel more attached to it. I have DM modules before off of like DM's Guild and things like that, and I never really feel attached to the NPCs or villains or the city itself, even the world itself. And with being able to like craft it yourself, I feel very much more involved and attached to the story, rather than, oh, I read this module for like an hour, now I'm good to go run a game. So it just makes me feel more in the action, a part of it.
For me, I've always just been kind of a world builder. I love world building. I love making weird monsters, coming up with legends and cultures and stories within the setting itself and pantheons. I love making a world, just bringing it from the brain and putting it into the actual world. And I've been doing that since like forever. When I was a kid, I'd be like drawing like fantasy maps for my games and stuff, and have silly names for the villages, and come up with like giant mountains made of chocolate and stuff like that, because I was a kid. And eventually that transitioned from giant mountains made of chocolate to like serious world type RPG stuff. And as anyone who has maybe talked to me about Steam Spell before, I would have been putting that setting together for a year and a half, 2 years before I even ran in it. And Steam Spell's like the first time I'm ever actually like running in it.
Yeah, I think another reason I kind of prefer it is because the longest campaign I had ever played in, up until, I met Alex and we started doing all this stuff together, was a homebrew setting. My uncle just went completely nuts, and he has binders full of binders and binders and up in his attic about his setting. And it's basically just a ripoff of the England. That's basically
Aren't
it's
they
the
all?
map is the same. And but anyways, that was like a 2-3 year campaign we played in off and on, and that's just kind of the way I thought that's how DMs do it when I started too. I didn't
Yeah.
even really think about, oh, there's a ton of setting books and vast knowledge of people who are better at this than me. I was just like, nah, I'm gonna do my own.
Yeah,
So,
and I
oh, go ahead.
oh sorry. I was just gonna say I agree with Chris where it's like you feel more attached to the setting when you made it yourself because it's kind of like when you eat something you bought from the store. It's not nearly as good as if you when you make it yourself because there's that made it yourself quality that comes to it. And along with that, you don't feel as constrained, right? Like Chris is saying, you have to know the Forgotten Realms, and I feel like a lot of stuff's happened in the Forgotten Realms, and there's too much to track, and it's like you can feel almost hindered by all this stuff that's supposed to be helping you to run a game. But the stuff I want to do is like making villages, coming up with establishment, coming up with guilds, orders, gods. That's already done in those. And then it's like, and now with my own stuff too, I can go and change it if it hasn't been
Mm-hmm.
like revealed and put into the game. As long as I haven't said anything, I can go back and be like, I didn't like this. I want to go and change this.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would you say are some of the biggest inspirations for you? Like, what are some things that you pull from when you're designing your homebrew settings?
Um, some inspirations. I'll cite Critical Role in getting me into the hobby. I've definitely, even the quest line that we're currently on in Agora's Bells is, inspired by things I've seen on Critical Role, and other streaming games as well. So definitely that. World building itself, though, I base quests off of things I've seen, things I like, but world building itself, I just kind of really think about the way that the world would interact with each other. Inspirations itself are just the monster manuals. I read through that, or like Cobalt Press, their monster manuals as well. I read through that and I think, where would this enemy thrive? And then I just build a city out from that, or a landscape out from that. So it kind of starts very like individual for me, and then it just spreads. So anything published, like Tome of Beasts, Creature Codex, anything like that, I just love reading that. It's my favorite type of book. Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, and then I just kind of populate through that. So
In terms of world building and what inspires me, it's kind of a lot of it's kind of like the what media am I absorbing at that current state and time? What am I into? Like when I came up with Steam Spell, I was heavily inspired by the old developer Troika. They had a game called Arcanum of Steamwork and Magica Obscura. Really needlessly long title. Basically, they took the idea of let's take a standard fantasy setting, throw it into into like the industrial era, like the 1860s or whatever. Let's do a steampunk fantasy. And that's really where it's like, oh, and I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. And I was like, I kind of want to do a D&D setting with kind of that a similar concept, and that's kind of what laid that groundwork to go with a steampunk diesel punk uh outlook over instead of like a standard typical fantasy. um Other stuff I tend to pull from some of the video games. I will pull from like Forgotten Realm stuff if I'm really like I want like kingdom type things and more medieval society stuff.
mhm.
um Actual legends and myths. The Night Fiends from Steam Spell that y'all battled last night are the concept. I kind of got inspired by the Native American lore of behind of the Wendigo, so I like to take that stuff too. And as I mentioned earlier, too, like history. Like history's got some of the craziest actual plot lines that happen that you can turn into a freaking D&D campaign. Just switch some things out, add some dragons, and it's like,
Yeah. Especially video games for me, just because that's always been, honestly, even up until like a year ago or so, I would say that I definitely played video games more than I played D&D. Now that might be shifted a little bit.
yeah,
Maybe not even, but anyways, the things I take from those not necessarily are like the world, but they're like the names and the way people talk to each other in those times, and like almost
yeah,
the dialogue. The last name Darunes, which is like a huge thing in Agora Spells right now, is actually just ripped from a video game, just because I loved that name so much. It has the perfect like bad guy feel to me, I
Yeah.
guess. And so I just was like, oh, they're a good guy in this game, they're a bad guy in mine now.
I'm guilty of that too.
Yeah.
Another game that's really inspired me, one of my favorite CRPGs, Wizardry 8. I pulled a ton of stuff from that, and like that game had like some science fiction elements in it, like spaceships and shit, kind of like Might Magic. And I have to put that in like every one of my D&D games, like that old school thing of like the party finds a crashed UFO, and like I have to have that. And that's why like in my setting there is like basically ancient aliens, ancient astronauts that came to my world, because I like that stuff. I love blending science fiction and fantasy. And also then that of course brings you into 40K when it comes to being inspired by media, and because 40K just has some really interesting factions and ideas.
Yeah, I mean, even there was a while there when the newest Star Wars movie came out. I wasn't even that big of a fan of it, but all of a sudden I was like, hey, I want to do a cyberpunk game, like, and I still want to. So it's just whatever like is culturally relevant at the time. Honestly, as soon as I saw Star Wars, I was like, yeah, like I could do that. Like, so I think it'd be really fun to do that as well. And that's literally just because I saw that movie like one time. I'm not even that big of a fan. It was just like this little thread that turned into a spark. And...
But Chris, does your like week to week or game by game planning change also based on like what? Because like after I finished Doom Eternal, I was like, God, I want to just go write the coolest combats right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been rewatching some old episodes of other live streams I like, and I'm like, oh, that's a pretty neat thing. Maybe I'll base something off of that. So it's just whatever I'm watching.
So what made you decide to start like a Twitch actual play channel rather than, do maybe a podcast or pre-record?
Oh, I remember why. I remember this.
Okay.
I were like,
take it away.
A podcast or a live stream, we were kind of like weighing between the other ones, and Chris is like, if we live stream it, we don't have to edit that shit. And that was like right there. It was just like, we're streaming.
That's the only reason, because neither of us wanted to edit or had the know-it-all to do so. So
yeah, people who do podcasts, I give them huge props, because streaming is a lot of work, don't get me wrong, but like podcasts, it's like we can like excuse bad audio, tech hiccups and stuff like that. Like, oh, someone sounds a little crackly tonight. Well, can't be helped. We're live anyway. But when you're on a podcast, no, everyone's got to sound crisp all the time. No, streaming what seemed like the easier thing to do.
And I think I really like engaging with a live audience. It's a lot. It's really fun to see some familiar names in the chat and chat with them about their day. And all of our mods do a great job of that. I think most of us, whenever we see someone come into the chat, we all say hi, and engage with them real quick, even if it's under the guise of Chromatic Chimera, which is the account that I chat with. But even if it's even if we don't get every person, at least we get to see what they're saying about the game, and if they enjoy it. It's really fun. Giving and receiving raids, that's a really fun thing at the end of the stream, when we can send our viewers somewhere else and engage with another community that we all really enjoy, or vice versa. We get all these new people who are maybe seeing us for the first time. It's always fun to see these new people, how they interact to the content that we're talking about.
Yeah, I do have to agree. I really enjoy, that's something I've learned from doing this versus like, because I do listen to a few podcasts. The live interaction really adds another dimension to the game, like being able to see the audience react live to the big story stuff. I can think of specific instances from Steam Spell where the audience was like going wild over what was going on in our game, and you don't get that in a podcast, because like I've listened to podcasts, I'm driving to work or whatever, and I'm like, oh my god, and I'm reacting to it. But that game's done and over with. That's pre-recorded. Imagine getting that. Oh my god, that's rad live, and it's so different. It's a surreal experience.
It also makes me feel more connected than I think maybe a podcast would. Not that I would know, I guess, but kind of what Alex is talking about how everybody watches it at a different time. The
Mm-hmm.
majority of the viewers we interact with are watching it at the same time too. So even if Alex did have this awesome experience listening to a podcast and then his other friend listened to the same one, they listen to it at different days, but everyone is on the exact same page with us when we're streaming. So it's like real time instead of this delayed, like, oh, like I saw a tweet 3 days ago, which is a spoiler for this.
Yeah, and
um,
also I just I like being able to see who I'm playing with, and I like being able to see other people when they're role playing, especially when I'm watching other streams, because I'm a very expressive person. So, also throwing it to Abby. Also, I've learned to love dope looking layouts.
also
you,
true. Yeah.
you don't really get to do as much visual work with a podcast, and I also enjoy doing the visual work. So.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think what started as us being lazy and wanting to do less work actually was a good choice for our community,
Yeah.
just because we get to talk to them more. Again, it's a lot of work leading up to it that all of like us do in preparation for a stream, but then once the actual stream is started, it's not as much as I feel like a podcast would be, just because they're,
Mm-hmm.
like Alex said, they're constantly worried about that audio level. We just have to make sure that my power doesn't go out, basically. So.
And don't get me wrong, I think streaming ended up being a lot of more work than Chris and I initially anticipated. So much so that like my advice when people are like, "Oh, I want to get into streaming," is find another channel who like incubates and stream via them, because it is a lot of work and it's very thankless and grueling sometimes. And having someone else be able to handle all that stuff for you makes for a much more enjoyable experience if you're
Yeah.
wanting to try streaming out.
On the topic of that, and starting your own channel and everything, what are some things that you didn't expect? Like, what are some maybe issues that you had, or pleasant surprises that you did
Audience.
not expect?
Yeah.
An
Yeah,
actual
honestly.
audience.
Yeah, I mean, we've developed a pretty large, Discord community, and that's not really something that I expected to like ever take off. I more made the Discord just to organize all of our lore in one place for our players, just so if they want to look at the arch existences in Talencia, they can go do that without having to interrupt the game every time. So that was more the intent of the Discord, I think, and then we opened it up to the community, and now we have like 150 plus members.
Yeah.
People who have been involved in events we've thrown, people who are avid watchers every week, people who have just there to support us because they're our friends. Like, it's just great to be able to connect to all of them in a different way. And even if they don't come out to the show that week or that day, we can still talk to them in the Discord, and they'll catch the VOD, and then they'll hit us there. So I think the Discord community is one thing that really makes me happy. Our Discord is absolutely huge. Not maybe numbers wise as much, but like we have so many tabs that people can engage in. You want to be a home brewer, we got you. You only want to watch Steam Spell, we got you. You only want to like play in events that we do, we have that too. So
yeah. I would say that is definitely Chris bringing up other people's streams and rating and stuff. I didn't expect to make so many friends along the way. And I know that sounds really corny and kind of fucking silly, but like it's like I've made so many friends doing this. Like, like Chris and I are like tight now. Like I'm friends with all the players, not just even just in people in our community, and also like other streams like Dice Priory. We like this. Like Foreman and I hang out. Like like, and then like I'm setting up a home game, and I'm thinking of asking like bringing Noir Enigma in, and like Kelsey that we played with, and now we like play a Curse of Strahd game with people from the universe. Also, like we were hanging out with Daniel Fox at PAX. I was taking selfies with him at the bar. Like I never thought I'd meet like someone I consider a personal hero and actually like not have that experience suck.
Yeah, I agree. There's just a lot of people, and I don't even use Twitter that much. And there's just a lot of people that I've been able to connect with through Twitch and the Twitter community from streaming that I probably wouldn't have before. Recently, the top of my mind is I got to talk to the developer of City of Mist and the people that run their Twitter, because we're going to be starting that campaign soon, which we'll talk about later. But so that was really cool. I didn't think I'd get to talk to, these developers and people who make these awesome books that I only get to read. So that was really cool.
And I don't think if we never did this, I would have never experienced The Witcher himself telling me, my character, in character, hey, you, shut up. Like, that would have never happened. And, like, also the fact that we put on a successful virtual convention and actually raised over $1,000 for a charity. $1,400 to be exact. I never imagined all of this stuff we'd be doing with the channel. Well, originally was supposed to be just kind of us putting our games out there for whoever to show up. We have a community, an audience, like a live audience who comes and watches us, friends, and like we're doing big charity things that I would have never been able to pull off without like the channel or the community. It's just, I know, like you mentioned issues in the question, but like all of the awesome stuff that has happened makes the issues pale in comparison.
Yeah. I can't, like, of course we've had like issues like here and there. It's never really been with the admin team or anything where you're normally on the same page, but just other people we've interacted with, things go wrong, people disagree, but again, it's not anything like too serious that has ever severely impacted like the enjoyment we get out of the stream. And they normally are cleared up in like a day if we have like a disagreement or something. So it's like Alex said, it just pales in comparison to all of the cool things we get to do because of this.
Yeah, and tech issues, that's expected.
Yeah.
Like we went into this expecting tech to go really bad.
I miss Discord. Just kidding.
No.
That's the thing. We've also definitely tightened up our standards for what we think is a good stream and whatnot. Our layouts look A1. No one's disconnecting anymore. Everyone's got a camera up. Everyone's got decent stuff. Like we went from just kind of like janky starting out, the startup stream, to like making content.
Yeah, and I think that's a good attitude to have. Going into making a stream, is that we took it relatively serious relatively early. Does that make sense? Like we kind of treated it more as I don't want to say a business, but like a organization.
Content creation.
Yeah, like we were like an organization more than like friends playing D&D from a relatively early stage. And don't get me wrong, we're still friends playing D&D. Like I look forward to every day that we get to play together and everybody, but I think that we did it right in the sense that we really took things seriously, and we did these awesome events. We had, Abby revamped the layouts. So we had like Alex has stuck out good music and like or sought out good music, and we've just done a lot of those things early on instead of just using like stock things that we could have.
And no hate to stock stuff, but
no.
I mean, yeah, we started treating it serious from an early point of view. We started out as a group of friends putting our stuff out there, but then we came back to our group of friends and said, hey, we're actually getting an audience. We want to take this we're taking this seriously. And that's a thing you have to kind of think about is you're still making content. Like that, it's content. So why not have it look good? Why not have it sound good? Why not have Alex not disconnect 5 times?
I missed that though.
Oh, I missed that too.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, so I guess like go ahead.
And to the people who stuck around since those rough early days, you're the real OG.
I guess the most unexpected thing for me is that we are taking it more seriously. Like not in a bad way, but like I didn't really care about the quality so much when we started. I just wanted to play D&D with my friends and play and get to DM, and like that's kind of why we started it as well, is that me and Alex wanted to do both of these things. So we made it bi-weekly to start so we could actually be a player and a DM on a regular basis. And so I guess the most unexpected thing is that it's pretty decent. So
The most unexpected thing is that it's decent.
Yep.
Yup.
I knew we would tell good stories. I knew we would have good adventures with friends, but the production quality is definitely something I didn't expect. So
Yeah, and I mean, I think I've said it a few times on Twitter. A good story doesn't necessarily make a good D&D game. You could be the greatest storyteller of all time and be the shittiest of DMs. So there's a lot of pieces that have to come together to not only make a good D&D game, but to also make a good stream. So it's a magic alignment of the stars.
Mhm.
So over the past year, we started out with 2 games, and they were just only on Wednesdays, alternating Wednesdays, and now we have a pretty full schedule. On
Yeah,
a
let me
day
go
by day
pull that
basis.
schedule up real quick.
It's like every day in April except for 3, I think.
Yeah.
We have a Monday game. We have Tuesday games. We have Wednesday games. We have Thursday table talkies, and hopefully
It's
Blue
just
Rose will come
Saturdays.
back. And oh yeah, you're right. It's only Saturday we don't have anything.
Yeah.
Friday we're gonna have a game soon.
Yeah.
Saturday nothing. Sunday heavy mech.
Yeah,
Mecha.
it's just Saturdays,
Whoa,
and
that's
then
weird. That's weird to think about.
Yeah, no initiative is finishing up. More
Yeah.
announcements to come, but
Ooh.
yeah.
So
over the past year, everything's kind of grown very, very quickly, and exponentially. What has been your favorite addition to the channel since in this
okay,
first
you're
year?
gonna ask us this on a live stream that's gonna have a VOD that any of our
Oh,
people can go
damn.
and watch. So, well,
my
Steve's
favorite
though,
addition.
obviously.
I mean,
No, that wasn't an
it could be a
addition.
game that like we did. It could be like a one shot that we did. It can be like a game that we did a while ago and that finished. That mini campaign finished up. Or it
All
could be
right, I'm gonna
something
let
different.
recency bias get in the way of this one.
Yeah, I
That's
know
fine.
you are.
Curse of Booty Island was an awesome one shot, and here's why. Let me explain why.
Here's why.
First of all, I ran the game, so it's great already. But no, for real, I think I talked about it with the players. Especially I mentioned it to Chris. It just Steam Spell's a fun game. The games we play are fun, but they're a different kind of game than what Curse of Booty Island was. Curse of Booty Island really reminded me of my early DM days when I was introducing my friends to D&D in college, and all of them were like, I can do this. This is so freaking cool. Like, we got a T-Rex fighting the Kraken. It was just so balls to the wall, fun and wild, and just I kind of just had a few notes and just said, here's the base plot, players go wild, and it just was a riot.
Yeah, I mean, I loved Curse of Booty Island too. It was hilarious. Like Alex said, I love the games that we run. I love both of our Wednesday games and all the games we play in. But there is something different about a one shot like Curse of Booty Island where it was just classic D&D. Like it was like, okay, most of it's gonna be combat. Go wild, do wacky things in combat. Good luck. Hope to see you on the other side. And it was just so like classic and great. And like it got to the point where I was rolling for my turns so we could get back to Nora Enigma's turns faster because he was grappling a Kraken as the T-Rex.
There's this vibe that it has where the serious games, they're fun, but like just the goofy, this doesn't really matter. Oh look, this is campy. Like there's a Kraken, and like Chris made that encounter happen because I was like, hey Chris, when you think of like pirate stuff, what do you want in a pirate D&D game? And he's like, ghost pirates. I want ghost pirates. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna add the ghost pirates to the Kraken fight, and that's like just classic D&D. You're not really worried about like, does this make sense? You're just like,
no,
I'm gonna just
who cares?
Here's 40 skeletons.
I'm gonna slap some monsters on a map. You're level 10. Have fun.
I think kind of off that subject though, another thing that I really enjoy is obviously getting to watch like Alex DM, but just everybody who's GM'd, MC'd, whatever you want to call it, on our channel has been really cool. Obviously, I get to play in Lucy's game, so it's really fun to watch her world develop and her style of DMing. It's fun to watch you, Abby, run, Couple Date My Baby, stuff like that. Like it's just fun to see other people like in the hot seat, I guess.
Yeah.
yeah, it's just been really fun. I love watching our other games do it as well. I'm really excited to do a new system and see if I can do that. And so it's just cool watching new people get to DM and tell their stories. Obviously, all of our D&D games are their stories too, but the story that they created in their head. Instead of like in affecting a story, they're like creating their own thing that we get to affect. So it's just a lot of fun to be um, just in so many of these things and get to watch the things that I'm not in just evolve over time. Like No Initiative has been great. I've seen every episode of that. Just to watch that the way that they've evolved throughout that. So
plus, I've been getting introduced and learning so many cool new systems. You know, Tales of Minery Village introducing me to Blue Rose, which I already had some level of interest in. So it's nice to be able to see it play out as well. And or like Lancer and Heavy Mecha, like I was watching them like set it up, you know, and whatnot. And I'm like, damn, I want to play this game. This looks cool. So it's like it's really cool that it's like we're not just playing D&D, we're doing other systems, we're showcasing other stuff, and it's just I love it.
Yeah, I mean, not to be a suck up either, but I also think it's pretty cool that we have like a Table Talkies, which is a show that isn't, you know, isn't really D&D. It's just about D&D in the community. So I think it's fun that we also offer that like variety on the channel. So that's pretty fun too. That's not something I never expected, is that we do other things really. So I'm glad to see we are. Yeah.
A full schedule. We went from just Wednesdays to almost every day. And
yeah,
now
I
I'm
have
like,
it pulled up. It's crazy.
So do I, and I'm like, I could squeeze something in on Saturdays.
Look at that Saturday morning. Looks
Saturdays for
good.
the home games.
There's one Tuesday in there I could run a one shot.
No!
It's
Monday,
weird
rather, sorry.
the way the mind of like, and that's when you know you went from just running your game online to you're in content creation mode when you're looking at the calendar like I could squeeze something in on that day.
Also like an interesting debate because people love 5th edition D&D so much. If we should run like something else that people enjoy, or we should just do more D&D 5e because that's what we like too. Not that we don't like other things, but that's what the majority of the community likes to see. So when I was deciding what to do on Fridays, again, kind of like Alex said, that Friday time slot had been staring me in the face for months, and I was like, okay, we're gonna do it now. I'm done with work responsibilities for a while. I'm gonna do that now. And yeah, so I decided to run a different system, and we'll just see how people and the players enjoy that one.
I mean, our channel's like halvesies. It's like half D&D, half not D&D, so.
Plus, I'm really excited to try out City of Mist because of how narrative it is.
Yeah. I just find it interesting bringing in all these new tabletop role-playing games, which I wasn't interested in before we started this stream. I didn't care about anything except for 5e before the stream, and now I'm kind of like, okay, these look fun too.
And you got a message saying, check out Zweihander.
Yeah, I also own that book now, so.
So,
yes.
I'm trying to figure out like. Okay, what is something that you are most proud of accomplishing with Chromatic Chimera within the past year?
CouchCon.
Yeah.
That's recency bias talking again.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. But I mean, we raised $1,400 for Doctors Without Borders. And had a consistent, decently sized viewer base the whole weekend.
And it wasn't just us. I mean, we did this across 4 channels.
Yeah, and not just the end product, but also like leading up the organizing it, putting it together, coming up with the events for it, and running and playing in it. So I mean,
it's also like it was awesome to see. Yeah, like we were running tech, the majority of them, either Abby or I, or at least on our channel. But it was also cool to see games that we weren't necessarily involved in. Like I'm thinking of the DMs one shot right now.
Yeah.
I had no hand in that. I watched it. That was it. Like I watched it on our channel, but the DMs and the players were just exceptional in that, and it was fun to watch like a spotlight for other people that we could kind of create. So yeah, I'm really proud of the money we made too, but it was fun like letting new people that maybe have never streamed before stream on our channel, or people who have never DM'd before. I don't know, it's just it's just I'm really proud of getting everybody into it. Obviously, I'm proud of the stories and things that we've told and our persistent campaigns as well. But outside, I'm just proud of the community that we've been able to foster.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's kind of basically what I was going to close out that question with too. Was like, I'm just proud of just what we've achieved, made a community, told awesome stories that are still in the midst of being told. Uh,
Mhm.
Give it another month or two, and Steam Spell will be my longest run game ever,
Yeah,
most
I
consistent.
think officially I'm longest DM'd game on Agora's Bells. So
Just we've accomplished so much. Just people making fan art of our characters, wanting to
that
know
was
more about our
huge. Yeah.
settings, like that. I'm proud of that. And
Hmm.
again, like as Chris was saying, this community we built around the channel.
I'm also proud of making up Nance. So
Yeah,
that's
and
yeah.
the fact that we've been consistently sneaking in John Mulaney references into all
Ooh,
of our sessions.
and the fact that somehow, spoilers for Agora's Bells and Steam Spell, click off, that somehow me and Alex accidentally linked our settings without actually talking about it at all. So,
And then we eventually did. We were like,
yeah.
I was like, hey, Chris, I think we have some really similar lore stuff and we could connect our settings and just, if we ever wanted to do a massive crossover, because, those always go spectacularly bad.
Yeah. I've never seen a crossover do well.
For D&D, it's just too
No.
many people all at once trying
Yeah.
to do too much.
The only way I could really see it work if it was like a 3-player game and a 3-player game. You combine
Yeah,
for
that-
a 6-player game.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah,
be the
it-
only thing I could really see working. Anything more than that is just
Well,
it's unruly.
all right, we're gonna go on a little bit of a rabbit hole here, and the other problem with these crossover things, especially in D&D, is you kind of have to railroad for them to happen. Like,
Yeah.
have the two groups of characters meet, and then like anyone who's run or played in a game, anyone who's run a game of D&D knows your players aren't going to do what's planned. I need to
No.
keep reminding myself that the Star Touched's favorite solution to any problem is violence. I'm a fool to think that someone is going to walk away without being threatened in some way in my games. I never account for it, so it's like, don't do crossovers, folks.
I think another problem is that pretty much every crossover ever, and I've watched quite a few just to do research in case we ever do one, is okay, here's an awkward meetup. You learn that you're on the same side. Now go kill the dragon. Like there's never any like interesting really role
Yeah.
play other than like, oh, you're a new person. Hello, we have some little bits in common. So I think it's cool for the audience to see that, but as a player, it just feels like rough to sit there through like 15 initiative orders, and then it's like, oh, I get to go and I missed the dragon. Okay, next. So it's rough to play, and it might be fun to watch as like people interact, but it's kind of a mess.
They play more like one shots than like your campaign sessions. Anyway, rabbit.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wanted
Yeah.
to dive down that rabbit hole because it's something Chris and I've talked about a lot.
It could happen. We'll find a better way to do it.
Well, let's talk about future stuff for Chromatic Chimera then, because we're kind of getting to that point. So, what are some future plans that we should maybe expect to see or hear more about that are coming to Chromatic Chimera?
Well, tomorrow night, Friday, April 10th, I am running some people around our channel through a 8-week campaign of City of Mist that we have titled Dead Winter. It's going to be really fun. It's somewhat noir, somewhat mysterious, but it is about the folklore and legends that live within normal people every day, and those coming to the surface. So we are pretty excited for that. If I do say so myself. Alex is a player in it. So last night we sat down and we made his character, which is going to be super cool. So that's the most, that's the soonest thing on the horizon. Other than that, I don't think we have too many more plans unless I'm wrong.
Well, not that I can think of. I mean, again, we kind of hinted at no initiative. It's, when they're done with Dead Skies by Night, they're going to be firing up another campaign, hopefully starting sometime in May. We don't have all the details on that yet because, spoiler alert. I mean, besides that, I think maintaining probably more charity events in our future, because now we know how to do those a little easier now. We've learned quite a bit from CouchCon.
Yeah,
I know we're
we've been talking
definitely,
about that.
yeah, I know we're definitely looking to do one around Pride Month.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's definitely going to be a thing.
Yeah,
So,
that's like our next big thing, I would say.
which
as
is
you know, I've been.
surprisingly only 2 months away.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, let's give it a month. We'll be fine.
um, I mean, I've been eyeing that Saturday slot, as I mentioned. That's nothing confirmed though. And then continuing the ongoing,
Zweihander.
Steam spells. This plot point thing that's been going on for a year now is reaching ahead, and we'll be kind of like beginning a new arc after that. So, like, if you're not sure where to start and you want to get in on the Steam spell fun, it's gonna be a good time to jump in.
Yeah, I would say very similar for Agora's Bells right now. We just kind of started what I would call the second major arc. And from here, it's going to be pretty much a wild ride the entire time. I don't really expect another beach episode or like festival episode. It's going to be pretty much chaos until the last episode of Agora's Bells now. So I'm really excited for that. It's just going to be a lot of high octane action, and hopefully we don't burn out with all the awesomeness. So, so yeah, it's a good time to jump in for that as well. We have 2 VODs up now, and those are the first 2 of the arc.
Unless, Abby, you're gonna get like a brain blast at 5 a.m. again.
Yeah. No.
No.
Bad idea.
Our schedule's too full now.
Yeah, that's not happening. And besides that, where can people expect to find you? Either, social media, conventions when the world is done being over, you know, after the world stops ending.
You mean after the most boring apocalypse?
Yeah.
It's only a boring apocalypse because we are the extras. We are the extras in this apocalypse movie.
Well, most people know the channel exists, at least from my end. If they are here from my end, is because of my Twitter account, Mr. Puddins. My current avatar is the Doom Slayer. It's the Doom Slayer with an Uwu face and helmet. Just accept it. I talk about RPGs a lot on there. I sometimes will toss my ideas out. I do a lot of hyping up for stuff here on the channel. And that's mainly where you'll find me. If you really want to interact with me on a little more personal level, join our Discord. We stream it here. I forgot for a second. I'm like, wait a minute, this is for the channel. Other than that, yeah, that's where to find me.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Touch of Tiefling. I don't use it a whole lot, but every once in a while I fire off a banger tweet. So make sure you're there. If you want to talk more personally as well, you can find me on Discord. Just join our Discord, and you'll find me listed as an admin in our channel. I'm definitely on Discord more than I am on Twitter, so if you actually need me, that's a good place to go. Other than that, yeah, like I said, we're here. So.
Yeah, this is where to find us.
Yep. You're in the right spot already.
And I know Alex and I plan to be at Gen Con if the world stops ending by then.
Oh yeah, cons.
Not sure if it will work.
Is that in
out.
July?
Yeah.
End of July.
Yeah.
There's always PAX again.
Fingers crossed.
There's always CouchCon next year.
Hey.
Hey. I don't know if we're doing that again. Well, sorry to ramble on, folks.
And with that, do we have any announcements before we log off?
Check out Dead Winter tomorrow. As Chris said, it's gonna be like a noir film meets Marvel. It's like if Marvel decided to do a noir movie.
Ooh.
That's what it is.
It's very cinematic, so it could be something different than you expect with D&D, where the players kind of say it and it's real. Instead of saying, "Can I do this?" they kind of say, "This is my house. This is what it looks like." So it's very narrative. It's pretty much whatever the players want to do. So if that's something you like to see, like player controlled games almost, and the DM gets to react more to them, then that's the place for you. Yeah, I hope to see you there. It's going to be 8 weeks, and it's going to be a wild ride all 8 of those weeks. So.
All right, and with that, we will sign off. Make sure you come around tomorrow for the premiere of Dead Winter, and then we have all sorts of fun stuff going on Sunday through Friday. So
Yes.
We take one day off.
We have one day off. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Good evening and welcome to Chromatic Chimera, the channel where everything is made up and experience points never matter. And especially not tonight because it's a table talkies night. And tonight it's a very special table talkies because I brought on the founders of Chromatic Chimera as we kind of just had our first anniversary. So we're going to talk about Chromatic Chimera, the first year, and things going forward. It's going to be pretty exciting. So thank you so much to Alex and Chris for being here.
Thank you for having us on our own channel.
It's so nice here.
Yeah, that's because you're the one not running tech tonight.
I know, it's so freeing.
So we're going to obviously talk about the channel a lot and like how you decided to start the channel, how it came to be and stuff like that. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about you individually. So, you're both, I know you both, you're both giant nerds, enormous nerds. And I was just wondering, how did we get to this point? When did you start being nerdy and how?
Alex, you want to go first?
Sure, I can go first.
Cool.
Let's see. It all started back on that fateful day in 1993 when I was born. That sounds like a joke, but that's really where it started. There's like a picture of me, fresh out of the womb, just directly in the world, and my dad's reading a comic book to me.